So let's talk about 5 behaviors that can often sabotage or destroy relationships as a dismissive avoidant. So I'm doing a series about this, and I think it's really important to notice that sometimes when we have these different behaviors that can act as saboteurs or relationship destroyers, we often are in the moment that we are executing on the behavior, we are lacking insight about the impact of the behavior itself. And so while it can be difficult and kind of painful to notice these patterns about ourselves, and while it can feel uncomfortable, it also is a great tool for developing insight and to see, like, what are these patterns of behavior all about? Where are they coming from? And how can I take accountability to change them? Because not only will my quality of life improve, but the quality of my relationships will improve dramatically. So, number one, dismissive avoidants tend to stonewall, and this can act as a huge saboteur to relationships because the stonewalling mechanism of coping, this develops way back, usually when somebody has a dismissive avoidant attachment style develop. And by stonewalling, and you'll see this like in the strange situation experiments with Mary Ainsworth and John Bowlby, you'll actually see like little children between the ages of 0 to 2 express and exhibit some stonewalling type of behaviors where they look away from their caregivers, and they're trying to essentially on some level disconnect and minimize their attachment needs in order to self-preserve and self-protect. And so while the stonewalling behavioral pattern literally is just a mechanism to try to self-protect, it's rooted in self-preservation, it's the result of trauma, it's rooted in its own innocence that way, it still has a massively negative impact on relationships because stonewalling itself is destructive and pretty much exclusively destructive. And when we're talking about like making a relationship last, we are looking for constructive patterns. We may have to reconstruct things, we may have to rebuild things, but what we want to be able to do is rather than just have a destructive outcome where we stonewall, we shut off, we don't talk about or address something that's bothering us, we want to have constructive patterns of behavior where we acknowledge what bothers us, we communicate it to somebody so that they can know that we are being affected by something that's going on, and then we can hash it out and work it out between the two of us. And so stonewalling has almost exclusively destructive outputs, except for the very short-term gratification that it gives a dismissive avoidant attachment style to disengage from conflict and self-protect. And outside of that very temporary effect, it usually has a lot more negative long-term consequences to it. So number two, and this sort of goes hand in hand with stonewalling, is sometimes because DAs are somewhat conflict avoidant. They usually like are sensitive to criticism. They usually don't like to engage in conflict. They prefer to just shut down where they feel kind of safe. You'll usually see that dismissive avoidants still have feelings about stuff. And although they may take longer to even recognize the way that they're being affected by something, when they don't deal with something directly, it usually comes out in a different form. And that's with the entire human experience, right? If we don't address something, we can try to push it down, but it's like trying to push a beach ball under the water. Like we can push it down for only so long and it's going to pop out somewhere else eventually the moment we let go of pushing it, right? The moment we stop trying so hard to push it down. And this is exhibited in point number 2 here, which is dismissive avoidance can often engage in passive aggression. And I think this is again, like, it's the DA's way of like getting some kind of emotional relief by expressing something about how they're feeling emotionally, although it may not be expressing something that they're actually feeling about a situation. So for example, if a dismissive avoidant is in a situation where they are upset about something that you said to them that felt critical and mean from 2 days ago, and they push it down, they don't address it in that moment, maybe 2 days later, they make a passive aggressive comment to you, right? They kind of just say something rude and kind of off the cuff to you. And, that may give them some kind of relief because they're upset about something from a couple of days ago and it's now coming out in a different form. However, it isn't constructive for the relationship. It's like an eye for an eye. Like that's not getting anywhere. So, you can see a lot of these dynamics taking place. Number 3, we have flaw finding. Dismissive avoidance, again, as a measure for self-protection, when they start feeling too afraid of being vulnerable, can start flaw finding in their minds about their partner. And they may or may not express it to their partner. Oftentimes they do in some indirect form, but not always. But what's destructive about this is that they use flaw finding and finding flaws of their partner as a subconscious strategy to create distance and to justify that distance. Like, oh, it wouldn't work because they have this thing or that thing. And the reality is, in our human relationships and experiences, people are going to have flaws. We are never going to get into a relationship, no matter how much we love somebody or care about them, or no matter how compatible we are or how many similarities we have, we are never going to get into a relationship where there aren't things to address and work through. That is part of the relationship. That is part of what deepens the experience of a relationship itself, is our ability to actually address things, unpack them, open up, hash them out, understand each other better because of it. And it actually is very, it's like the way I would think of it is like, you have a wound and you have to open the wound and salt the wound and then close it and then it heals. And it's like the salting part's not fun, but it's such an important part of the healing process. And so we have those things we have to hash out. We have those differences. And flaw finding usually is a strategy subconsciously to just be able to disengage from something rather than doing the work. And it comes from this deep subconscious fear dismissive avoidants have around closeness and vulnerability. Also, if you're hearing some of these things, you're like, oh, these are mine. You can check out our dismissive avoidant reprogramming course. It tackles all of these different things at the root by specifically addressing the fear-based beliefs we have, the unmet needs, the inner healing that we need to do as individuals. And you can check it out for free for 7 days using the link down below if you are a dismissive avoidant. So number 4, you'll also see dismissive avoidants sometimes being unwilling to make compromises. And I think that to a dismissive avoidant, when they aren't co-regulating with somebody, when they haven't had the ability to open up and get their needs met through somebody else, and then because that person is sort of filling their needs cup halfway, feel comfortable also making compromises and concessions to things in relationships. Often dismissive avoidants have these really rigid kind of boundaries up and fears. And part of it's because they don't feel like they can fully be themselves in relationships at times. They may partially feel like that, or they may feel like that for short periods of time, but they haven't like fully let their guard down. And they're usually in this like low level fight or flight. And so that taxes them when they're interacting with other people. They usually feel kind of like stressed and walking on eggshells a little bit with others. It's not because of anybody per se. It's because of the subconscious relationship dismissive avoidants have to people because of the way they were usually parented in their childhood. And so because it feels like it's more draining to be around people and like they have to walk on eggshells, they will often feel like, okay, I don't want to make any more compromises. I'm already making enough compromises just by participating in the relationship this way. And it really causes them to struggle with co-regulation. And if we can't co-regulate, it's hard to feel like we can mutually do things to support each other and feeling really good and regulated together. And number 5, this is an obvious one. You will often see dismissive avoidance be dismissive. And there's a great study out of the Gottman Institute with Dr. John Gottman. And he talks about how one of the biggest impactors on relationships is somebody's ability to engage in a bid essentially being a cry for attention in a way, for lack of a better term, not in like a negative way, but just little attempts to engage somebody in conversation and connection in, for attention to be exchanged between two parties. And so you could see somebody say, oh, look at the pretty cloud out the window. Look at how nice it looks. And if somebody is just dismissive and shut off, it was actually shown to be one of the most detrimental elements to a relationship. And unfortunately, dismissive avoidants, because they tend to be really in their own inner world, sometimes they can be quite dismissive, and it has a massive impact on relationships for that reason. I just wanted to pop in here and let you know we are doing a 7-day free trial to the All Access Membership Pass at PDS, which means you get access to literally everything inside of the school. And this includes the 4 live webinars I do with our students every single week. And on top of that, you get access to all of our different courses. We have over 55 different courses on relationships, communication, boundaries, emotional mastery, guilt and shame, learning your needs, so many different facets that are really important to master our lives and feel really good about our lives going forward. And last but not least, there's a daily community event We have trained facilitators and coaches who are in there doing that work, showing up to support you on your journey every single day. Please join me on the other side. Come check it out. See if it's a fit for you. I'd love to see you there. Go ahead and sign up by clicking the link in the description box below. So those are 5 major things. We can explore the bids thing more. I actually have a couple other videos on this channel about that. And I hope this makes sense. Thank you for watching. If you're a DA, I hope you gained some insight. If you're the partner of a DA, it may be worth expressing these things, sharing these things, and how they affect you as the partner of a DA, because it's really important that we each, as every attachment style, do that in our work to heal root cause, and also to then be able to express new patterns of behavior, since we're not coping from old traumas all the time, and then bringing those behavioral patterns into our current relationships. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to this channel if you're enjoying it. Again, you can check out that course for free for 7 days using the link below, and I will see you in the next video.